Hello again, this is Joy Butler. This is my second or third video for my video blog. And actually this is part of a new series that I'm creating where I will be reading excerpts from a book called Spiritual Perversion that was written by Steve Sanchez. Steve Sanchez is a former minister and director of the Spiritual Rights Foundation. He was also involved in ISHI Hypnosis, of course, and the Academy for Psychic Studies. So what I'm going to be doing in this series is I will be reading an excerpt or two from his book, which I have permission to do from the author. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about it and share some of my own experiences with you that's related to the excerpt. Okay, so see how this goes. Okay, so the first excerpt is just kind of an introduction to the two main stars of the trancing that started to occur at the Spiritual Rights Foundation. Reverend Bill, who was the founder of the Spiritual Rights Foundation, he was the leader. He was charismatic, very controlling, demanding, and he was an expert at mind control techniques. He admitted on numerous occasions that he had been using trance on people at the Academy since the beginning of when it started. He said he didn't call it hypnosis, but he was using trance techniques to bring people into an altered state of consciousness and change their minds, basically. So that was definitely him misusing trance and hypnosis. And he did that on most of the members that went to the Academy for Psychic Studies. So in other videos, I'll go more into the history of ISHI Hypnosis, spiritual, I don't know what it's called, ISHI, yeah. But anywho, yeah, so we'll go more into the history of how it was created. But I'm going to read this excerpt and comment on it a little bit. Okay, so for, there's two people, or three people in this excerpt. Reverend Mason is an old-time member. He's gone from there. He's been gone from there for a long time. I don't quite remember how long, more than 10 years ago, I think. And he was one of the fathers that were trying to help their children be able to go to public schools, because Bill Doobie, for whatever reason, didn't want any of the kids there to go to public schools. So basically, for a certain amount of years, none of the children there were really getting any sort of education. This is one of the people who left and actually started fighting to the Academy for Psychic Studies by writing newspaper articles and helping Steve Sanchez with his book. Let's see. Okay, and then the other person that's mentioned here is Debbie Livingston, and she is the director of ISHI Hypnosis right now, and she was one of the other people from the beginning who was trained under Bill Doobie, and he actually trained her to be his protege. Okay, so it says, for a long time, Reverend Mason was the golden boy because he was considered to be a good trancer. He was sort of Bill's right-hand man when it came to trancing. Reverend Bill declared that Mason could tell when anyone else was faking it in trance. So Mason became the unofficial policeman of catching people faking, which was a lot of power for a minister to be given. We were all very afraid that he might say we were faking it. During trance sessions, Reverend Bill asked Mason if we were faking, and if he gave the thumbs down on someone, that person was screwed. Mason himself was never accused of faking it in trance the whole 4 years that he did it. Debbie was a trance star, like Mason, but even she was stung and shamed for days with the accusation of faking it. On these occasions, her cocky, fragile world crashed and burned, and she was suddenly out of circulation, as if she had been imprisoned in some astral realm. Her cute Irish-English face turned white as a sheet with mortification. She lay low in her growth period for days, trying to treat everyone humbly. A week or so later, Reverend Bill started to use her again, and before you knew it, she came back, brash and cocky as ever. So that was one of the excerpts from Steve Sanchez's book. And a couple things as far as my own personal experience. I definitely witnessed Mason and Debbie both on probably hundreds of occasions going into trance, also being admonished by Reverend Bill and all that. I definitely remember a lot of this. And Mason left, I think, a year or two after I started trancing. So I don't think I was there for the more extreme situations that Steve Sanchez talks about in the book with Mason. However, I definitely know that there was, when I was there, a lot of pressure on people where Reverend Bill would walk around and say, "Ooh, who's faking it today?" And he would just point someone out and say, "Oh, you're faking it," and start berating them and just cursing at them and doing all these things. And I don't think that's a very healthy way to help someone. I don't know about you, but that's very abusive. And this is what Reverend Bill would do many, many times. Let's see. Another thing with this is I heard many. This was a long time after this happened, but I've heard other people speak of Mason, and that he admitted to a couple people there later on that he was put in this position to point people out that they were faking, but the facts is that he didn't know how to tell if someone was faking. He was not a trained hypnotherapist. This was even before ISHI began. So Bill Doobie was telling this person who had no experience with trance as far as any training, I mean, other than being able to go into trance himself, in which he admitted he faked numerous times, being in trance just like everybody else there. But he said it was just so much pressure on him. He just kind of had to guess. So, you know, it definitely was not a healthy environment. And a lot of the trancing that was done was basically peer pressure, where people didn't want to be the one singled out to be faking. So even if they were having problems in trance, I totally believe that some people really, or a lot of people were really going into trance. But, you know, some people have bad days. Maybe they won't. But to have that much pressure on you, to not even have a choice, it's almost like not having a choice of being honest with yourself because you're so afraid of being pointed out.